customers and the other environmental issues, as well as dislocating our kids for 2 years, which is a large factor of having 2 kids in bachelor school. It's the only reasonable solution that I think we all can choose today. And I think that we do need a resolution as quickly as possible.
Mr. Weiss?
Well, I'm in favor of redistricting the school system because I still believe that the class sizes, right back to the very first question, can be upgraded to accommodate this. Everyone that wants a new school or do this or do that is not going to solve the problem today or next year when it's going to take effect. In that case, we put in modular classrooms. Every school in the United States has modular classrooms now. What makes us so different? By the time this new school in Swan Pond, if it gets voted in, gets built, all those kids will be in high school. Now we'll be looking for a new high school. It's just not going to work on a snowball effect. I believe if we redistrict, put in several modular classrooms, we'll be good to go.
Ms. Hardy-Vaca, rebuttal?
For short-term needs, the school department does have plans for modular classrooms, and we absolutely are redistricting, but all we're doing is taking kids from an overcrowded building and crowding them into classrooms and taking away some of the specialty rooms that we just completed at the Little and Hood. So that's not a long-term solution. But I would like to speak to vitality in the town center. We have a high school and we have athletic fields. We have lots of kids in the center of town. And I would propose that the bachelor school be reused for administrative offices, but mostly so that recreational uses can be maintained on the fields and in the building. That's lots of vitality for that common, which I also treasure and like to preserve in its current state.
Mr. Schuler?
It's been a frustrating period of time since November when the people of this town spoke, and they spoke eloquently, deciding against the Swan Pond. There was a lot of interest. I know Todd Smith came to a couple of meetings that we had had, and some of his group had an open mind about what are the range of options that we have to address the needs of our kids going forward. And everybody had high hopes that we had another option besides just the Swan Pond, which was seen by many as divisive, and they knew people wanted to do something with the bachelor school. The proposal that's on the table right now is hard to put your arm around, to embrace, and to be in support of. As I said before, there will be one coming up that our architect, an MIT educated architect, put together. We just saw the plans today. It's aesthetically pleasing, historically on the mark, and it meets all the functional specs and comes in under the Swan Pond.
Mr. Van Beaver, rebuttal.
Just point of clarification. I didn't mean today, actually, 11 o'clock, but I meant today, meaning months from now or years from now, just a little joke. But I do support the Swan Pond, based upon the facts it presents today. I know there's been a tremendous amount of efforts, and I congratulate those efforts on different alternatives over the years for the facilities needs of the town. I think offering a alternate proposal 1 week before the election is somewhat irresponsible. This doesn't allow the town to kind of vent and evaluate and understand that proposal. But I don't, again, keeping an open mind, keeping a positive, disruptive dialogue is an important part of leadership that this town needs to have. And again, based upon the facts, based upon what's presented to the town, the only solution today that's reasonable, that's fiscally conservative, supports the majority of the needs of the town is the Swan Pond School, which I support.
Mr. Weiss.
It's quite unique how only 2 things in the whole school system can have the whole town tore apart, which would be the Swan Pond School or the bachelor school. I think if the school committee, or being a member of the school committee, can gain the trust of the taxpayers and parents of this town, the taxpayers and parents will go along with what they say. In the next 3 years, this school committee has to gain the trust back to the taxpayer and the parents of these schools. we need a school? No one's told me that yet. Everybody says, yes, we need a new school. Yes, we have to do this. Yes, we have to do that. It's inconceivable, the deception that I receive. We have a fellow Vietnam veteran and I, a 5-man team can go in the jungle of Vietnam and not be seen. A 500-man team will be seen. It just doesn't make sense how a small group of people convince everyone else how it works.
Okay. Our last question before we go to closing statements. We'll start with Mr. Schuler. What is your plan to implement technology in the classroom?
It can be a bit of a controversial issue. I know we think automatically technology is automatically good, and the more technology that we can expose our kids to, the better. But I think you have to graduate that somewhat to various levels. My kids are in, as I said several times before, the bachelor school, and I think that thinking that somehow we have to have a computer on every desktop is missing the mark, and we're throwing our money at problems before they become problems. The issues at the elementary school level are of the basics. Kids can log on to google.com quickly enough as it is without having to do it in the school environment. Right now, the key issues, I've been at the library and seen young kids, elementary age kids, doing their math homework with calculators. And the computer is the same problematics as far as I'm concerned. You don't need to be able to think and write because you can look it up and cut and paste from a web page. The elementary school mandate, as far as I'm concerned, is to learn the basics, learn to be able to balance your checkbook when you get older, be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and be able to write a cogent, coherent sentence. It's not a given nowadays. As I said before, when kids are doing their 4th grade math assignments with a calculator, someone's missing the boat here. But you ratchet further up the food chain and you get to middle school and high school. Obviously, these are issues we need to focus on very carefully. But, look back 5 years. Who would have even thought that the internet would have taken over a preponderance of our attentions right now? And in fact, 5 years from now, you may log on to a computer by saying, hey, computer, I'm logging on. Who knows what the technology in the future is going to be? I'm not so sure as soon as you spend a lot of money on technology, it's not already obsolete before it goes online. It's a big problem. You can spend a ton of money, and I think you need to know where you're spending your money and what you think you're going to get for it.
Mr. Van Beaver.
I think information technology is a key, and extremely important to this society and will be for decades to come. It's not mentioned necessarily the number of computers you have or how often you spend on the computers. How is used the different type of devices out there, whether it be PDAs, web pads, other type of technology devices out there. I think it's critical for all students, people to learn and understand how to use. As part of the information age that we are in, is how to access different sources of information, different types of sources of information, whether it be scientific, whether it be historical, literature, etc. Is a important ingredient of the educational needs that we have today and will continue to have today. Again, the technology itself, the PC as we know today, using the keyboard, will eventually go away. It will be more verbal communication. But the understanding what the PC enables us to understand, enables us to have access to, including PDAs, including other types of technology devices. I think it's an important part of educational standards and goals and judgments that we have in this town, as well as throughout the U.S. Now, we do to support that is look at a cross-section of technologies, not just the number of PCs on people's desks, how many PCs they have access to, but having understanding that PDAs and personal device assistance, web pads, and other type of technologies can be utilized to benefit your knowledge, to expand your horizons out there, not to solve math problems only, not just to copy something for a homework assignment, et cetera, but just to understand how you broaden your horizons, get more exposure out there through different technology devices.
Mr. Weiss.
I believe we need to start saving today to immediately start the research on a high-tech, state-of-the-art high school. The technology field is in the high school where the kids are going to be getting ready for college. getting ready for anything else. That's where it's needed. I agree with Mr. Schuler on the elementary should be teach the ABCs, and we'll get to high school, a high-tech high school. That'll also, if you're looking at the high school, will also solve the space problem in the long-run future by just upgrading each of the schools. We definitely need to look at a technology school basis. The high school that we have in town, I feel is a little inadequate right now. They're trying with the best that they have, but we need to start working on that immediately. I believe the next school committee members should be working on that. As far as the elementary schools, teach them the ABCs, and let's go on with business. Thank you.
Ms. Hardevac.
The school department does have a technology plan, and when it was first written, it won recognition from the state level for its initiatives. And that responsibility lies with our technology curriculum director. So there is a correlation between technology and curriculum. In our schools, technology is utilized in two ways. Every school has a computer lab where children go and they learn the skills of operating a computer, and it's specifically related to computer keyboarding and programs. Then there is the computer in the classroom, and that is a tool for a teacher to use in educating children. There are different ways to impart knowledge to children and to introduce subject matter. And this computer system can be used to help children who are visual learners and not necessarily textbook learners. Some students learn by being lectured at, some learn through their reading, but some children need that visual, and they need that connection to say, this is how that math relates in the world. And Mom, why do I need to know geography? Well, here, let's go to that place and let's look at what they're doing and let's build that correlation. And then you have to remember too that there are children who need computers, children with small motor skills that are not writing, and that's the big thing for elementary kids, to write, just write their stories and not get so tied up in their spelling and their mechanics, but to get them to think and to write. And to have a keyboard just enables those kids to go and write without just sitting with a pencil in the hand that can be so difficult for some kids. So it's a tool, and if it's used correctly, it can be used for each child's own different developmental level.
Mr. Schuler, would you like a 1-minute rebuttal?
Okay. I think that things are changing so quickly right now, and Mr. Van Beaver is someone who knows about that as much as anybody coming from the communications industry. It's hard to even anticipate what's going to happen. As I said, look back 5 years, that seems like ancient history right now. So it's very difficult, I would think, to formulate a long-term technology policy. Also, given the backdrop, we live in an age of limits. We're trying to do more with less. And also that we are, the 80-20 rule, only 20% of the people in town have kids in the schools, and we need to be mindful of how we're spending it. The key issue, I think, is an attitude towards technology. We have to understand that technology is an enabler, and we need to tag on it and utilize it however we can. It's not an end to itself. It's a two-edged sword, and I would hate to think that somebody is using the technology to fake a skill that they really need to have. As I said, add, subtract, multiply, divide, and write an essay. So I think it's a two-edged sword, and there we go.
Thank you. Mr. Van Beaver.
I agree with Mr. Schuler that it's an enabler. Technology is an enabler. And I'm thinking myself, having grown up and having learned a severe learning disability and speech impairment, didn't speak until I was 8 years old, and using a voice recorder, which is a basic form of technology at the time, was helpful for me to hear how I spoke, the deficiencies I had in speaking. And a voice recorder was a major technology enabler for me to speak today and accomplish what I have. So I do believe it's a mentality, is how you can leverage technology. The technology itself, whether it be a PC, PDAs, or devices, will be changing. It is changing. But how we apply it to special needs of our students should be the focus of how we, again, accomplish the goals and objectives of the school system. So addressing the special needs of our students through technology, different types of technologies, should be a focus.
Mr. Weiss. Oh, okay. Ms. Hardevaca.
I would say